Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see your slides.
Perfect, great. Well, hello and happy Friday. Thank you, Colleen, so much for the ability to present to the Climate Adaptation Plan group and be part of this webinar series. It's just a joy to interact with all of you and hear this information. I have a feeling that we're going to be doing as much learning as we will be doing sharing today. And it's just been really great in this time of social distancing, how we've used technology to overcome, being apart, and it's been able to keep us connected and share information. So I am an outreach manager for the Energy Trust of Oregon, and I am based out of a home office in Pendleton. Prior to COVID, I was actually only one of 3 staff members who did not report to the Portland office. And my role is largely to provide program information to customers and stakeholders across program markets in residential, commercial, agricultural, industrial, and renewable. But in addition to connecting customers to our resources and incentives, another part of my role is actually to make sure that our customers in Eastern Oregon are top of mind for our program staff, so services can be tailored to support rural communities and needs of specific communities. So what I'm hearing from you all today is almost as important as being able to share this information. So in addition to my position, there's actually a lot of smart people, technical experts, and analysts at Energy Trust, including contractors, field staff, trade allies who support our program areas. And I have some of them, there's names up on our slide today. I think Donald Williams probably doesn't need an introduction to you all, but he is newly on board as our existing buildings energy advisor for Eastern Oregon. We are also joined by Jeni Hall, who is a senior project manager of our solar program and has a focus in community resiliency. And Dave Moldal, who is our senior program manager of what we call other renewables, and that's renewables that fall outside the realm of solar for our programs. So, Colleen was kind enough to share with me the draft climate adaptation plan, which helped to inform our agenda of what we would be sharing with you today. So I'm going to provide a quick overview about Energy Trust, who we are and what we do. And then just to kind of help frame what the possibilities are for future strategy, I wanted to provide some past and current engagement that Energy Trust is working on in the realm of energy efficiency, just to help consider for this group, where future investments might lay. And then I'm going to pass the ball to Jeni, who will review solar and talk about resiliency strategies, and Dave, who will talk about other renewables programs and project feasibility support. So a little bit about us. As an independent customer-focused nonprofit, we stay true to our mission and message. And as an independent nonprofit, this helps us with our credibility in customers, stakeholders, as well as other folks in the industry. Our programs are dedicated to serving the investor-owned utilities, which is about 1.6 million customers of Portland General Electric, Pacific Power, Northwest Natural, Cascade Natural Gas, Avista, and Northwest Natural customers in Southwest Washington. So the primary focus of the 2 utilities, as you well know, that we represent on reservation land would be Pacific Power and Cascade Natural Gas here in Eastern Oregon. Also, our funding is a result of state legislation, tariffs, and other requirements on these utilities to meet energy efficiency goals. So customers of these utilities pay a small dedicated percentage of their utility bills to support a variety of energy efficiency and renewable energy services programs in Eastern Oregon and Southwest Washington. We are guided by a volunteer board of directors. We also have 3 advisory councils, and we are overseen by the Public Utility Commission. So our investments are focused in 3 core areas: cost-effective energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is one of the most affordable resources to saving energy. And like many programs nationwide, to ensure a return on investment for our customers, we use these cost effectiveness tests to guide us in determining when to offer an incentive and the amount of the incentive that we have to offer. We also have a focus in making more affordable renewable energy systems. This will be talked in greater detail by Jeni and Dave, but we offer early project development assistance and installation incentives for solar, hydropower, biopower, and geothermal systems, like a lot of what Patrick went over. And then transforming markets to offer more energy efficient projects. This has to do with accessibility. So we work with NEA, which is the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, to make energy efficient projects, services, and behaviors a standard practice, and essentially develop the market in that realm. LED bulbs is a great example of Energy Trust buying them down at the retail level to encourage customer use. So what does this mean to date? So Energy Trust formed in 2002. The results of our work since that time have been about 1.8 billion in utility customer funds, saving and generating an 724 average megawatts, and saving about 65 million annual therms. Investments have transformed over 718,000 homes and businesses in Oregon and Washington. There have been 14,500 renewable energy systems that are generating clean power. And these investments have already helped participating customers save about 3.4 billion on their energy bills so far. And over time, these utility bill savings will add up to approximately 7.7 billion. That's stat on the slide. So these investments have, I think particularly relevant to this group, kept 29.3 million tons of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, which is equivalent to removing 6 million cars from roads in Oregon for a year. And then this graphic, in a weird way, if you can follow me here, it has kind of reminded me of that Venn diagram that I've seen on past webinars that shows the intersection of the climate adaptation, the different wheels that intersect, sort of the Venn diagram thing. But this is a graphic that we carried, which is about how Energy Trust programs and assisting communities with energy needs can influence other things like water savings, facilities upgrades and infrastructure upgrades, more livable homes, better health, and resiliency. And while it's common for folks to think of our programs as very project-based, we are actually increasing the ways that our programs are supporting communities, treating communities holistically like a customer. Through this level of engagement, we're able to learn and gain an understanding of those local priorities and leverage those interests to make projects happen and reach customers who we might not have been able to serve previously. So this is a review of the past and current engagement. We're providing some technical information about those programs. Some of what I hope I'm about to share are projects that you might be aware of, but not necessarily the level of involvement from Energy Trust or maybe all of the different energy efficiency features within these projects. Apologies that I don't have a photo up here. I think for some reason my latest slide deck did not refresh. So the Wild Horse Expansion Phase B, which added your food court and bowling alley, which was completed in fall of 2020, was a pretty fantastic project. I'm so happy to see it have carried forward, and it's a really super cool facility. That project worked very closely with our new commercial buildings program. And just wanted to call out, that I would say that in development of tribal projects, CTUIR really knows how to bring Energy Trust in early to support that work. You'll note at the bottom the Phase 2 hotel expansion participated in our early design assistance, which is a specific incentive for Path to Net Zero, where we are able to help make recommendations on the building design and programming to offer the most significant resources that we have available, in addition to making recommendations on passive design features that would help with energy efficiency. The next one is the Nikiwawe Education Center, which was completed in fall of 2019. One of the things I like the most about this particular building is that a lot of the energy efficiency was obtained through passive and active building design, which includes things like building orientation, daylighting, high performance building envelope, high performance windows, solar heat gain, and shading, all of which those types of features do not need to use energy and can reduce the overall building load and considerations for the heating and cooling. Also, VRF, which is a variable refrigerant flow with a ductless heat pump, was used, and that provides heating and cooling through liquid rather than the air, so it's exceedingly more energy efficient. And you can see some of the other features including that we assisted with, including early design, path to net zero, technical assistance, path to net zero. We provided installation incentives, and then commissioning. For folks who are not familiar, that is a way of balancing the heating and cooling system so it's running at its optimum and is its most efficient. It's also very overlooked, and a building, even though it's brand new, can have its control settings off. So we do commissioning for building occupancy. We also do retro commissioning for existing buildings, which can result in very significant savings. This particular building is performing 44.7% more efficient than another building built to code at the same size with the same relative usage. And renewable generation at this facility has been planned, so the roof structure is in place, but it has not been installed. Yellowhawk Tribal Health Center. This is another facility that I think a lot of you are familiar with. Energy Trust was very embedded in the process and design with this building. It had high level energy efficiency goals. I also want to tell folks too, for those who may not know, it was the first of its kind. It was the first tribal health center that was built on a path to net zero track. And it was performing at the time of completion 60% more efficient than buildings of its same size and usage. And again, this building incorporated a lot of passive energy efficiency techniques before even the mechanical systems were considered. You've probably all seen the solar panels in the covered parking area. The roof structure is also prepared for a solar system. And you can see that with the savings that are being obtained, it's about $58,000 in energy costs a year that are being offset by the planning and construction. The other thing I wanted to mention was the tribe's involvement in strategic energy management. This strategic energy management, or SEM, is a cohort-driven model that helps participants look at how buildings and occupants and staff are using energy by examining building systems, equipment, operating procedures, and occupant behaviors. They begin by focusing on low and no cost operations and maintenance for improvements that will deliver energy savings, and then sort of cycle up into those higher level investments that might require advanced budgeting or operational planning. Participants attend workshops with their cohort. They learn best practices integrating energy management, receiving templates, examples, tools, and support from energy coaches, with a range of technical and organizational expertise from our program staff. In addition to incentives, which is kind of what we're known for, we also have, through this program, milestone incentives that an organization can receive when they participate each time that they reach one of those milestones. There's also intern incentives that are available, which helps to cover the cost of hiring an intern who works on strategic energy management related activities, and education opportunities. So, for example, when I was mentioning the commissioning, there are programs for building operator certificates that Energy Trust will essentially cover the cost for facility staff, in addition to other resources and training that would be applicable to that work. So the tribe actually has two major employers who are involved in our Eastern Oregon SEM cohort. And my goal of sharing this with you today was just to bring awareness as you know, the tribe is considering energy, you're embarking on your strategic energy plan, just creating that awareness of what is already being done in the realm of energy efficiency in the community. And that there's a culture that I know everyone also really knows and is in touch with. And then other recent projects, just to make note of, Mission Market took advantage of some lighting projects for LED. Wild Horse Golf Clubhouse took advantage of what we call individual incentives for lighting, HVAC, and kitchen equipment for that building. And then we are working with your housing department as well as individual homeowners on a wealth of different residential programs that we have. We are connected to the some of the development that is going on at the new Nikiawe community. We supported the Tillicum Grain project that was built in 2015. And for those of you who are in the area, Lucky 7, we are actually providing incentives for the new homes being placed there. The manufactured homes are for energy efficiency. So that is through our pilot program. So I now will pass the ball to Jeni Hall. Again, she's a senior project manager for our solar program, and she'll be able to talk to you a little bit more about what we have to offer.
Hearing, there we go. Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Okay, there we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeni Hall, and I'm with the Solar Program Energy Trust, as Caryn mentioned. I'm going to have a few slides I'll be going through with you here today to talk about some of about solar a little bit more specifically. And to talk through the technology and the available incentives, but I always like to start with a few key points about solar that I want to make sure you hear. Solar works in Oregon, as Patrick described in much more detail earlier. It's great that you've done this specific analysis for the reservation. Energy Trust has incentives for solar projects to decrease the cost of going solar. And we can help you get started. Really, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about here in maybe much more specifics is the fact that we really strive to make solar easy and help you take the first step. So I expect we each have different levels of familiarity with how a solar electric system works when it's installed on a home or on a business or on your property. And so I just wanted to talk through specifically how a solar electric system functions. So the solar panels themselves are mounted on your home or ground mounted, like you saw in the pictures. And when the sun comes out, those panels start producing electricity. That electricity is sent back to a piece of equipment called an inverter. And that changes that electricity into something that your home or your business can use, into the kind of electricity that you can plug into an outlet in your wall and make use of. That electricity is being used when the sun's out. Any electrical appliances in your home or business are using that solar power first. And if there is extra power, then it's going back to the grid. And that's through a process called net metering. Back when we used to have meters that could spin backwards, we would talk about how you were spinning your meter backwards in the middle of the day. But now they're all digital, and so it's much less satisfying. When the electric grid goes down, your solar system is designed, if it does not have battery storage attached to it, to turn off. And that's a safety feature. I'll talk a little bit more about batteries a little later, but it's just something to keep in mind while we're looking at this graphic here. So the solar program at Energy Trust is a little unique in that we have a network of trade ally solar contractors who specialize in solar that we work with, and they're located all around the state. The solar program works directly with those contractors, and it has expectations of them on the levels of insurance that they carry. We expect them to have slightly higher levels of insurance than the state contractors board does. And we have expectations for the customer service they provide. On the projects themselves, we also have some above code design and installation requirements that every project must meet in order to qualify for incentives from Energy Trust. And that is because you can design and install a solar system that meets the code and would never produce electricity, which is not what we want for any customer. Through our incentive application process, contractors work with customers to design a system that meets their needs, and then the contractor is responsible for filling out all of the paperwork. They complete the design, complete the incentive applications, and submit it to Energy Trust on your behalf. And at that point, we do a technical review of the project to make sure that it's going to meet our requirements. It's a lot easier to change a design with an eraser at that time than it is to get back up on a roof later. And once the system is installed, the contractor lets us know. We go out to the site to make sure that the system that was installed is the system the contractor said they were going to install, and that system meets all of our installation requirements. In addition to the incentive dollars that we provide a project, this is also a service that we provide for customers interested in solar. Solar incentives that we provide can be kind of roughly broken down into incentives that are upfront for the design and development of a solar project, and incentives that are available for the installation itself. For different kinds of projects, we kind of interact with the customer and with the contractor with the project a little bit differently, and those incentives show up in different ways, but that's kind of the two buckets. So for new construction projects, we integrate really closely with the new construction energy efficiency programs, and we have some incentives and some design standards and technical assistance that's able to be utilized to help solar be incorporated into the planning and into the design from the very beginning. And that's both for residential and for non-residential, for commercial projects. For existing nonprofit or public projects, we also have some support for the solar system design, because for those projects, we expect that a project is going to be going out for grants, and we want to help provide those incentives early, help mitigate some of the cost and risk of doing that design, even though that you're going to need to go out for grants and it might take a while. So there's some development assistance design incentives for existing buildings that are nonprofit or public owned, in addition to the installation incentive itself. And then for existing homes and buildings interested in installing solar, we have an installation incentive that's available, and those incentives are also split into a higher income qualified incentive for called the Solar Within Reach program for residential customers who meet that higher, the requirements for that higher incentive level, meet the low income requirements for that higher incentive level, and for low income service provider businesses as well. These incentives are relatively prescriptive, and as I mentioned, the trade allies really are the experts on how to make sure that your system will qualify to meet those requirements. And the first step for pursuing any of those incentives can be taken by going to our website and filling in the form, energytrust.org/solarbid, right there on the bottom. In addition to Energy Trust funding, we recognize that we are not the only funding that's probably going to go into a project, especially some of the larger projects or projects for nonprofit customers. There are other funding sources that are available, and the solar incentives that we provide are just one step. They fit in very well with those other funding sources by providing some upfront support during that design phase, by decreasing the out-of-pocket cost, and by positioning the project to be better able to access funds, whether those be tax credits, incentives from state, or grants from federal agencies or the utilities. Again, solar trade ally contractors are the experts on solar, not only on the technical design, but also on figuring out the right funding combination that might be available. And they're a great resource in understanding what options are out there. I just want to talk a little briefly about the less prescriptive, a little bit more forward-looking opportunities for solar. So as I mentioned before, a solar system without batteries is designed when the grid goes down to turn off, and that's a safety feature. When the utility comes out to turn back on the grid, when line technicians are up working on those poles, they want to make sure that they know where the electricity is coming from. And so solar systems are designed to turn off. By pairing it with a battery storage system and controls, you're able to turn a home or a business into a microgrid. And that's really all a microgrid is. Microgrid can be a home with solar plus storage. It could be a business with solar plus storage, just a single building, or it could be multiple buildings together. This allows you during that outage to power your critical loads and continue to operate the facility to support the critical lifelines of the community. An example of a microgrid is in Northern California at the Blue Lake Rancheria tribe. They have a microgrid that has been added onto over time. I think it was originally completed in 2017, and it powers several different facilities kind of located right next to each other. In Northern California, they have had to turn off the electricity to the area several times now over the past several years due to wildfire risk in an effort to mitigate that wildfire risk. And then just finishing up, I know whenever I start talking about microgrids, it sounds like it's really far in the future, but it is definitely happening. And really the barriers for seeing more of those happening in Oregon are just the low electricity rates that we have. But we're looking forward to working with customers and pursuing this opportunity for community resilience. It's my job now to hand things over to Dave Moldal so that he can talk to you a little bit more about the other renewable options. See if I can stop sharing and make that easier for him. Any questions as we make that transition?
Thank you, Jeni. Thank you, Caryn. See if I can make the slides work today. Can you see my slides?
We can. We're looking at the full presentation, not the presenter view, though.
you queue up the slides, Caryn, for me, please?
Sure thing, Dave. Hang on.
Good afternoon. Again, thanks, Jeni. Thanks, Caryn. My name is Dave Moldal. I'm delighted to be able to talk with you this afternoon. I work with Jeni in the renewable sector at Energy Trust of Oregon, managing the somewhat unfortunately named Other Renewables program. Thank you, Caryn. Sorry for the technological glitch on this end. Apologies. To round out our discussion from Energy Trust, I'm going to get into what the support that we provide for what we describe as custom renewable energy generation projects or non-standard, non-solar. Energy Trust is able, through incentives from the public purpose charge, to support a total of 5 technologies. Jeni mentioned solar. We also support municipal-owned community-scale wind, geothermal, hydropower, and biopower. Most of my comments today will focus on hydropower through our Irrigation Modernization program, as well as I'll conclude with a few comments about biopower, which is certainly relevant for your area of the state. Next slide, please. So much like solar, we support custom renewable energy generation projects, what I like to describe as through 2 buckets of money. We have project development assistance, resources available to pay for all the non-capital costs of project development. This typically involves feasibility studies, pre-design, feedstock assessments, interconnection, the consulting work, the assessments that are needed to determine whether a project's financially or technically viable. This is a cost share program up to 50%. We're willing to commit up to $200,000 of project development assistance per project, which is a substantial amount of money for any particular project. And it's that funding for early stage capital, often the capital that's most difficult to secure. Our second bucket of funding is installation incentives. Jeni's touched on this to some extent, so has Caryn, but it pays for up to 100% of the above market costs of the renewable energy resource. What this is, I won't go too far into the weeds, but we do a net present value analysis of the project's revenues and costs, apply a discount rate, and come up with an incentive offer for the project applicant before the project's decided to move forward. So we do this work and make an offer, an installation offer for the technology at hand before the project proponents actually decided to commit to the project. Next slide, please. First, our hydropower program. Again, we are committing and have committed over time significant resources to project development assistance and installation incentives. Most of our work since 2015 has been in supporting the Irrigation Modernization Program, which I'll go into in greater depth in a minute. But in addition to supporting projects for applicants, we also try to navigate and commit funds to identify and address barriers, helping those entities that need help navigating the complex interconnection process, development process, checking all the boxes to figure out how you bring a project from conception to commercial operation. So we have a lot of resources available to share with project proponents. Next slide, please. So since 2008 is when our hydropower program really developed. We've committed project development assistance incentives to more than 100 potential hydropower projects throughout the state of Oregon. Again, we can support projects that are for customers of Pacific Power and Portland General Electric, but also for projects that are outside of the footprint of those investor-owned utilities that have the ability to wheel electricity, deliver electricity to those investor-owned utilities. Just want to make that point. We've committed incentives, installation incentives to 17 projects, over 8.6 megawatts of capacity, generating in excess of 32 million kilowatt hours of energy to the grid every year. In the Irrigation Modernization Program, we've identified in excess of 32 megawatts of capacity. And I'll explain a little bit more deeply in a second how we're doing this, but let's just say the pipeline of hydropower projects in Oregon is rich, and there's massive technical potential for hydropower in this state. Next slide, please. So what is the Irrigation Modernization Program? This is a text-heavy slide, but the point I want to take away here is Energy Trust of Oregon, since 2015, has been committing substantial resources to date in excess of a little over $11 million in irrigation modernization to over 25 irrigation districts to date in the state are enrolled in the Irrigation Modernization Program. What is it? It's non-cost shared funds to help our irrigation districts go through technical planning processes, from assessments, data collection, water conservation assessments, fish passage assessments, financial analysis of where and when piping and pressurization could happen first and second, culminating in system improvement plans and a watershed plan. Why are we doing this? It's the means to hydropower in the future. We need to modernize our existing irrigation infrastructure. If a irrigation district moves through this process and has an approved watershed plan, it positions the irrigation district to apply for federal funding, critical federal funding through PL 566, a federal law, through NRCS. So once there is an environmental assessment, approved environmental assessment, it positions the irrigation district to apply for federal funding. And these are multi-decade, multi-billion-dollar programs that, but for Energy Trust funding, the critical planning work would probably not happen. So next slide, please. So conventional practices, I'll move through real fast. So we have an antiquated irrigation system in the state of Oregon, like we do throughout the West. We have a head gate diverting water from a lake, stream, creek, delivering water through ditches, canals, and infrastructure that's open flowing to farms and irrigated agriculture. So about 80% of the water consumed in this state is dedicated to irrigated agriculture, delivering to about 6,500 farms, equating to about almost 500 billion gallons of water per year. This is a very inefficient system, and some of our irrigation districts were recognizing that about 60% of the water is lost through infiltration, evaporation, evapotranspiration. The other challenge for this model is farmers and water patrons, of course, are using pumps, very energy intensive pumps to deliver water, pressurized water on stream to wheel lines and to center pivots. That's the conventional practice. Next slide, please. Here's some pictures of the challenges related to operation and maintenance. We've got an old fish screen in the upper left. Irrigation, these canals and laterals and ditches have to be cleaned out every year. So all the sedimentation and debris that clogs the irrigation district's a chronic problem. And there's also public health and safety effects. In the upper right-hand corner was a blowout of an irrigation district in Central Oregon. So all this infrastructure was made in the late 19th century, early 20th century. I kind of equate it to a system that works but doesn't work well, kind of our 2 tracks and gravel roads. And what we're trying to do is to modernize this system to make it much more efficient. And I kind of equate that just to paint a picture of the interstate highway system. Next slide, please. So modernized irrigation, basically starting at the point of irrigation or diversion from the water source, state-of-the-art fish screens, moving this water to farms and ranches in pipe, in conduit, flowing downhill, providing pressurized water. Now, when you divert 1 unit of water, you deliver 1 unit of water. No water is lost along the way. Instead of pumps to move water on farm, there's opportunities for the installation of hydropower projects at turnouts and pressure reduction valves. So we're delivering all the water that we divert now to on farm, and we're delivering pressurized water, which saves farmers, ranchers, water patrons massive amounts of money in terms of costs, significantly less operation and maintenance costs, and of course, the focus of our work is hydropower. Creates huge potential of hydropower for Oregon. Next slide, please. So irrigation modernization, this is a project or program that's going to last decades in the future, but we're already seeing the fruits of the labor of irrigation modernization. This infrastructure can be very large. In the upper left-hand side, some of these pipes can be upwards to 12 feet, high-density polyethylene pipe. We have seen great projects in Central Oregon, some demonstration projects at the Three Sisters Irrigation District. And the bottom right is a ribbon cutting from this last fall, the Central Oregon Irrigation District, who went through the process, has their environmental assessment in place, navigated the NEPA process, is moving on to the first phase of piping 8 miles of irrigation district pipeline. So there's great things happening in the irrigation modernization space. A lot more to come. Next slide. Just a picture to give you a feel for how big this infrastructure can be. Again, 12-foot diameter pipes down to about 4-inch pipes. The piping will occur in the existing and is happening in the existing irrigation district easements. It's going to happen in phases over time. There are some of our irrigation districts in the state, like the Farmers Irrigation District and Three Sisters Irrigation Districts, are reaching the point where they're fully piped and pressurized. Next slide, please. And of course, the focus of our work is hydropower. Here's a 700 kilowatt hydropower project that resulted and was able to be installed after that pressurized irrigation system was installed in Three Sisters Irrigation District, delivering not only clean renewable energy for the state of Oregon, but providing a revenue stream to help pay for debt service that comes when you, of course, take on significant loans to modernize your irrigation district. Next slide, please. If there's any picture that kind of encapsulates the irrigation modernization program, it's this. This is what you're seeing here is pipe being laid in former open ditches and canals. So now, instead of the farmer using the pump and paying a significant amount of money to pull water out of that ditch, now the farmer is being delivered pressurized water, and that water is being delivered consistently and providing a revenue stream for the ranch and farm. Next slide, please. In the case of if hydropower can't be developed, I want to give you a picture, paint a picture in your mind how it can be built to accommodate hydropower in the future. This is a turnout. This will be an excellent location in the future for hydropower. So as part of the irrigation modernization process, the system improvement plan will identify and are identifying locations where hydropower can be developed in the future. What you're looking at here is a pressure reduction valve system and a turnout, and at some point in the future, hydropower will be developed at this location. Next slide. Besides irrigation modernization projects on farm, on ranch, and owned by irrigation districts, we also support hydropower development for municipalities and for any location where there are basically head and flow. And this is a picture of a 20 kilowatt turbine at Wallowa Lake State Park, which reached commercial operation about 1.5 years ago, producing clean renewable electricity, offsetting pumping load for about 200 water patrons that live at the head of Wallowa Lake State Park. So a creative application of hydropower. Next slide. So I want to paint a picture just that hydropower is not easy. There are significant barriers to hydropower in Oregon. As Jeni mentioned, we have very, very low avoided power prices. So the best projects, be they hydropower or biopower, are those projects that can generate renewable electricity to spin the meter backwards. Creating electricity and selling it to the utility at the avoided power price is a difficult proposition, but we can help with that, but it's certainly not easy. There's also been a pretty significant reduction in state and federal incentives in this space, and we're constantly confronted with interconnection and access to transmission barriers and wheeling and scheduling fees. Next slide, please. I want to conclude with a little comments on biopower. Besides hydropower, our other focus of our custom project is really on biopower. What is biopower as we see it? It's really extracting renewable energy from organic waste streams as part of improved waste management and sustainability practices. Where do we see those projects in the state? Water resource recovery facilities, those facilities that are operating today, anaerobic digesters producing biogas, confined animal feeding operations, feedlots that have consistent supply of organic material that's available to be converted to biogas, brewery waste, pre and post commercial food waste facilities, food processing facilities, and of course, woody biomass producers, wood processing facilities that can take that otherwise known as wood waste, look at it as a resource, use it to combust, boil water, create steam, and create renewable electricity. Next slide, please. With that, I will save the rest of my time for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. This is Caryn again. I wanted to see, Jeni and I were having a little chat on the side here. And Jeni, I didn't know if you wanted a quick opportunity to talk about your interaction at Mission Market.
Sure, thanks, Caryn. In line with the kind of last few slides I was sharing about microgrids, solar plus storage microgrids, we're actually working right now with the folks over at Mission Market to do a solar plus storage feasibility study to provide the market with an assessment for a microgrid at that site, which is pretty exciting.
Thanks, Jeni. Since we all sort of had to each provide our slides, I'm going to put our contact information here on the chat. And happy to take any of those, the formatting, happy to take any of those clarifying questions now and look forward to your Q&A later.
Thank you, guys. That was amazing. I didn't know if Donald Williams, we lost him to you guys, which we're a little bit angry about, but glad that he found a really good, much more improved, I think, job with you guys. And so I don't know if Donald wanted to just say hi really quickly and talk a little bit about the projects that he's going to be working on.
Absolutely. I'd love to take a second and just say hello to the CTUIR and just appreciate the time I had there, and the transition with ETO, or Energy Trust of Oregon, has been amazing, and all the things that they have to offer and the projects that we have working on are just really, it's an amazing group to be with, and quite the transition, but I'm glad I can be here. And, now I'm filling the capacity of Eastern Oregon Energy Advisor. So I'll be in this area to help, with this primary area from Wallowa up to below Hood River. So I will be in this area and be local in the community. So I'll be accessible and be here. And I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself in a different capacity. And thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Donald. I'm really glad that you